Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of the Difr podcast. Today, we have someone special from the US. Early in the morning, he's coming in and doing this recording with us. He's Joshua Marpet. Did I say your name right, Joshua?
You absolutely did. Thank you.
Okay. He's the co-founder and COO of Red Lion LLC, and he's also an instructor in a university. And he does a bunch of other things. I will butcher all his introduction and everything. Why don't I let him introduce himself, and then we'll go on from there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I butcher names all the time and butcher everybody's thing, so I don't worry about it. Let's see. I've been around the block. I'm an ex-cop. I'm an ex-firefighter. I was disaster responder for multiple disasters in my country. I used to work in the Twin Towers, for example, and if you've heard of Hurricane Katrina
I
down in
lived in New
Louisiana.
Orleans, so I know about that.
Oh, you lived in New Orleans.
Yeah, for 5 years.
Do you know St. Tammany Parish?
Yeah, I do. I do. I do.
Just above New Orleans. I was with the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. That's where I was a cop.
Oh, wow.
So I lived in Slidell and Lacombe, and I bounced on Bourbon Street during Mardi Gras and Super Bowl.
Oh,
So
me too.
hell, we might have seen each other. When were you down there?
2014 to 2018.
Oh
Between
no,
that.
I was down there much earlier,
Oh,
2002 to 2001 actually to 2005, I think it was. So
okay.
yeah, it was. I left a few months after Katrina, but
Okay.
it was an interesting world. Anyway, so right now, like you said, I'm the COO of Red Lion. We're a compliance and security company based out of Maryland, Maryland, US.
Mhm.
We handle compliance for well, just about anything, and from FISMA and FedRAMP to HIPAA, which is healthcare, ITAR, which is export controls, to 800-171 from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, which is for federal contractors to control information flow.
Mhm.
It's all about information security, okay?
Mhm.
And in terms of the security aspects of what we actually do all sorts of things from physical security, as I was a cop and did
Mhm.
video surveillance as well,
Mhm.
to figuring out where people could break into a building and actually breaking in ourselves. I mean, do I have any on my desk? No, my lockpicks are all down in the packs right now. But I normally have lockpicks laying around everywhere because I fiddle with them to keep my hands busy. But this company was started actually as an entrepreneurial company.
Mhm.
We started it, myself and my business partner Scott Lyon started it about 3.5 years ago.
Mhm.
We had actually I graduated from Mach 37, which is an entrepreneurial accelerator
Mhm.
in Herndon, Virginia, for cybersecurity firms in 2014. And once I graduated from there, I started my company, or I had my company through there rather, but closed it about a year and a half later, which is fairly normal. It happens. Being an entrepreneur, as you know, is all about get knocked down, get up, get moving, get knocked down, get up, get moving, and
Mhm.
keep on going.
Yeah, and
And
they always say fail fast and learn fast and iterate more and more and more, right?
yeah, and the part that people forget to say is fail fast and fail often.
Yeah, exactly.
And it happens, and it sucks, but it is
Mhm.
what it is. So Scott was a good friend of mine, and we were working for different companies at the time. And we
Mhm.
said, you know what? We can only screw this up as bad as everybody else. Let's try it. And so we've been supporting ourselves and managing and making. We now have six employees
Mhm.
in the company. So we're succeeding, doing well in some contractors. That's a consulting company, and a lot of people do that. They build a consulting company to feed themselves and pay their bills, little detail things, just details, while they're out there building products, building services, building out their entrepreneurial vision. We're
Mhm.
doing the same thing. We actually have several different companies that we're building at the same time that we're working our original consulting company. So
Oh,
that's sort
that's
of where I
cool.
come from. Talk to me. What,
Okay.
what, what do you want to talk about? Let's go.
That's the thing I was going to ask you because there's a lot of companies in Nepal that are doing consulting work, especially in the IT sector. They're not doing compliance because we can't work on compliance sector because none of the people in Nepal know about all of these standards and codes that you are
Right.
mentioning. But we are doing most of the back end work or the full stack development work over here. For example, if you needed like a code junkie or somebody who codes a lot, they want to develop like a MVP really fast, they would contract somebody over here and they'll build these products. There are certain companies like Fuse Machines here who've been doing that for a lot of other companies in the US, and then they build
Good.
their own product and their own standards, like you said, like you do in your own company over there. So what I wanted
Right.
to ask you was, when you started this consulting company, and when you started doing all these consulting work, especially regarding risk management, how did you find all the other people that were really interconnected with what you did in the past? What I'm trying to say is, you had certain set of skills, and some other people had some other set of skills. How did you gel with each other? How did the teamwork make the dream work, let's say?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Okay, so your question crosses from corporate culture
Hmm.
to recruiting,
Hmm.
from how do you build out your vision to
Hmm.
how do you pivot that vision when you realize the team you've got is perfect for this, but not
Hmm.
for what you originally intended. And it's a great question. It was interesting. We started as just a security company, and as a security company, doing pen tests and vulnerability scans and things like that, we were looking for very, very, very technical people. We were looking for hackers, people that could break in anywhere from a bank to a government agency. And they're wonderful. They're very expensive. They're amazingly talented, incredibly smart people. And then we realized that sales is really important too. So,
Yeah.
to detail,
Yeah.
to detail. You've got
Yeah.
to bring in the sales to make the revenue to pay the people that are doing the work. And sales, strangely enough, is actually, and this is another topic, but sales is much harder than any of the other work you'll do.
Hmm.
Period. Bar
Yeah.
none.
Hmm.
Sales is the hardest thing. And anybody that says it's not has not tried sales.
Yeah.
Period.
I understand.
But for the team, for the corporate culture, number one, corporate culture is set from the top.
Hmm.
If you're on top of your people, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? They're going to do the same to their people. And it's going to be a rat's nest. It's going to be horrifyingly bad.
Hmm.
So you have to trust. But when you trust, you open yourself up to get wounded. Well,
Hmm.
we've had a few layoffs because of some of the people that didn't gel as well or we had some problems with or whatever. And it worked out well for us. We've now got a team that I'm blown away by the quality of my team now. They
Hmm.
are, Scott and I cannot say enough nice things about them. They're
Hmm.
wonderful, but
Hmm.
it took time and effort to get there. You
Hmm.
have to, we have in the US, I don't know what healthcare is in Nepal. I apologize.
Hmm.
But in the US, healthcare is an incredibly expensive, convoluted nastiness. My company, for our employees, we provide full healthcare, full employee paid, or sorry, full employer paid. My
Yeah.
apologies. We pay for all the healthcare, and it's a great
Hmm.
plan. That's a huge draw.
Yeah.
Okay, uh, my 1 year old is upstairs. I'm in my home office right now,
Hmm.
and she was born under the healthcare system that we keep all of our employees under. My
Hmm.
wife was very happy with it. We had great care. It was wonderful. The We have tuition reimbursement that we're setting up so that our
Oh.
people can go learn. As a
Hmm.
matter of fact, one of our employees is our bookkeeper,
Hmm.
and she was a teacher in a former life. She was an English teacher in a former life and a social studies teacher, if I remember correctly. She's asked us, can I go take CPA courses to be an accountant? We're like,
Hmm.
yeah, sure. Thank you. This makes her happy. This
Hmm.
gives her what she wants as a person, and we get out of her what we need as a business.
Hmm.
And so gelling those people together is more a matter of understanding each of their sets of needs and
Hmm.
making sure that what they can provide, my God, it sounds, unfortunately, in certain ways, it sounds very much like original Karl Marx. Everybody to each according to their needs, from each according to their abilities. And
Hmm.
realistically, that's kind of what you have to do.
Hmm.
You have to pay them, but you also have to meet their emotional, their intellectual, their roadmap for their own world, their own career. And if you can
Yeah.
do that, you will get out of them incredibly devoted work and
Yeah.
incredibly skilled work, the best they can give you.
Yeah, and then loyalty is a certain thing that cannot be measured, right? And some other aspect of loyalty is also, you're not only investing on the assets, let's say the computers or the consultants you bring in, you're also investing on their abilities. If you
Oh my
pay
God,
for
yes.
the Yeah, if you pay for that, that's investment. And many people that I see are that are trying to do startups here. They're trying to give out so much money, trying to hire so many new people. But then at the same time, if you could spend as much money sending your interns into different competitions or different conferences, they could be as much as valuable to you as a new person coming in. This reminds me of the famous case of the guy they hired for Apple to replace Steve Jobs back in the 80s.
Okay.
That guy was a soda salesman. Yeah, he sold soda, but then he managed to tank the company because he did not understand what Apple was to begin with. And then Steve Jobs came back and then reinvigorated the company. That's a certain strategy I really like. Now, I also want to ask you something else. You say
Sure.
you have team members who have been teachers, and you have been an ex-policeman, ex-firefighter. How do these skills in your past life translate into a startup culture? I just want to ask that.
I've seen two different sort of worldviews on that. And
Mm-hmm.
one is that, okay, whatever I did before, if it's not exactly what's this,
Mm-hmm.
it's totally irrelevant. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a horrible idea
Mm-hmm.
because I've done so many different things. I've been, and this is not a joke, I've been a cop, I've been a fireman, I've been a horse dentist, I've been a blacksmith, I've been a system administrator for one of the largest payroll companies in the world. I've been an IT manager for Estee Lauder. I've been a help desk manager. I've been a call center operator. You name it. It's especially if it's around technology. I've pretty much done it. I've announced polo matches.
Oh,
Horseback polo. Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. Was that in New Orleans?
No, actually, that's up in New Jersey.
Oh,
My,
wow.
my my family grew up around horses. We grew up around animals. I grew up on a farm, and there were friends that were like, you speak very well. Can you come and just talk about everybody in our circle? I'm like, yeah, I know people. Can you talk about the people and the players and everything? Don't actually announce the match. We've got a game announcer for that.
Mhm.
But can you announce the color announcer they call it? Talk about various things. Sure, I'll try.
So you're
And
like Jim Ross of polo. Do you know of Jim Ross from WWE? Like
oh,
the guy with
yes,
the hat. That reminds me, you have a hat on, and then you reminded me of Jim Ross.
that's
Since you
fun.
said you're a color commentator. So, anyways, getting back to what you said, I'm so
No, no,
sorry
no,
I
it's okay. No,
interjected.
no, it's okay. But I think that all those skills are valuable to me. When I talk to somebody on a sales call, for example, I say, "Hey, how are you?" I don't just jump right into my products or my services or whatever. How are you doing? What's going on? Because look, I want to make a connection with them. I want them to know that I'm a person. I want them to see me not just as the mouth with all the products coming out of it, but as Josh Marpet and someone that they might like to know. I've gotten
Exactly.
friends out of these sales calls. I've gotten relationships out of these sales calls. I've got referrals out of sales calls that I didn't get a sale with them, but they call a friend and go, "Hey, so when I'm on this sales call, they go, "Oh yeah, I grew up around here." I'm like, "Really? I know people around there. Do you know the whatever family?" And they're like, "Oh my God, you know them?" I'm like, "Yeah, he was my dentist." "Oh
Mhm.
wow, that's amazing." Uh, I talked to somebody and he said, "Yeah, I've got to bring my daughter to horseback riding." I'm like, "Oh my God, is she doing English or Western?" He's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Dressage, 3-day eventing. What is she doing?" And he's like, "Oh, And we're chatting about that. If you make a connection with people, you are more likely to be in their head when they think of something that is relevant to you.
Mhm.
Okay? With a venture capitalist, if you just blah 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 7-minute pitch, oh my god, 15 slides, we're done. Thank you, have a nice day, goodbye. That's nice. If they're not incredibly interested in what you've got to say, you're gone.
Exactly.
But if you go to a conference and you see that exact same venture capitalist having a piece of, having a cup of tea and a muffin or a biscuit, and you walk up to him and you go, "Hey, thanks for listening to me at that pitch. Did I see you at that horse? I'm just going to pick on horses, whatever. Did I see you at that polo match a few weeks later? Oh, you play polo? No, but I do announcing for the Bonnie Bray match in New Jersey for the Bonnie Bray School. I'm the color commentator." And they go, "Oh, you've made a connection."
Exactly.
And you now have that venture capitalist now has you in his head. Now, it may be that he's not the right venture capitalist for you, but I guarantee you he knows the right one.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Now, what I really understand was that when I really like the fact that you're a people person, because given your history with different sorts of work, if you were a firefighter, let's say you were rescuing some people, you'd have to assure the families they've been through a tragedy. You get to handle people, and then if you're a cop, I understand you are a New
You
Orleans
handle
cop.
people.
You have to handle people, and I can completely understand with that, because I used to go to University of New Orleans as an undergraduate student, and I can tell you, people in New Orleans, it's the Big Easy. It's not that easy over there as a
They're
cop.
crazy. Some of them, are, especially when they're drunk on Bourbon Street, they're crazy.
Oh, especially on Mardi Gras, like you got people from all over the world coming in, and they're drunk. And what you said about the venture capitalists coming into a conference and then asking them, there's a little bit of a story from this really good venture company here. There's this guy called Kaviraj Joshi, who's a Nepali, and he pitched his idea to his VC, who currently invested on him at a toilet. Like they were in a bathroom, they were peeing together, and then he just met him, and that's what I heard from like a third person, and that was like such an interesting story.
Yeah,
And it shows like such a Hollywood or a Bollywood thing to have all of these scenarios happen, but that's exactly what people do in real
yeah.
life. You connected with me when I said Nepal. You talked about your cookery. Let's go with that. How did you and when did you figure out about the cookery in Nepal? Can we just go a little bit into that, and then we'll go into Nepal's
Sure.
entrepreneur sector?
So I'm a student of history. I believe
Mhm.
that those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it.
Exactly.
And I believe that there have been lessons taught to many people over the years from people from all over the world.
Mhm.
And I read a lot of historical books and autobiographies, fascinated me for several years. And along the way, I read a lot of historical fiction and I read a lot of Kipling.
Oh,
And if you know Kipling, you know that he wrote about the British Army.
I
And
know a little bit about him.
he wrote a lot about the British Army. And he wrote, that was sort of my entree into military writing and military fiction and nonfiction. And I read some stories about the Gurkhas, and they were fantastic. And I mean, fantastic, like really well written. They were great stories, but they're also fantastic, like unbelievable. You know, you read a story about a Gurkha who beheads an entire ox with
Yeah.
one swipe of a giant
So I
kukri,
cookery. Yeah,
and you're like,
exactly.
that's got to be crap, you know? And then you're like, no, it's not. It's real.
Exactly.
And then you read about and you realize that the British Army still has Gurkha regiments in it now
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because they have been so impressed for however many hundreds of years now.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that is a backbone there. They are, and it's not like the Romans, because if you study history, the Romans started hiring mercenaries,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when the degradation of the Roman Empire happened. It was fascinating to me to read that. But the Gurkha are not mercenaries. They
Mm-hmm.
are part of and proud to be part of
The
the
British
British
Army.
Army
Yeah.
while they're there, and then they go home.
Mm-hmm.
But then they act as recruiters for the next generation.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
fascinating to me. That connection, that symbiosis, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The British Army injects money into Nepal and
Mm-hmm.
into the Gurkhas and the retirement pensions that they hold and the fondness and the love that they hold for each
Mm-hmm.
other. And the Gurkhas introduce incredible stamina and strength
Mm-hmm.
and a tradition, an unbroken chain of service into the British Army that is something that it desperately needs. It has, and it has its traditions, and it's beautiful, but this stiffens that chain. This helps.
Mm-hmm.
And the traditional weapon, of course, of the Gurkhas is the kukri.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to. I like knives. I like firearms. I like knives. I think weapons are fascinating pieces of engineering.
Yeah, exactly.
uh, and I was a blacksmith, so I made knives and I made horseshoes and I made hinges, and I understand the work that it takes to make these things by hand and by machinery, and the effort that it takes. And when you see some of the flourishes and some of the beauty that the designers put in there, not because it was needed, but because it was proper and it was perfect and it was good that way, it's really neat. I own quite a few firearms, But one of my favorites is one actually that most British soldiers from 100 years ago would recognize. It's a Lee Enfield, which is a
Oh.
rifle that British soldiers carried forever.
Mhm.
Okay.
I
Um,
think I might have seen the picture of it all because I'm so used to watching so many Indian movies where they portray British soldiers and then they portray all these people over there. And I've seen maybe pictures of that in books of our history because when we read Nepali history, let me give you a little bit of insight on that. We studied about Gurkhas and their fight against the British and how they succeeded to defend the British to come into Nepal, and then they never really conquered Nepal. So wow,
you've seen pictures of it? Well, there you go.
wow, yeah, that's exactly what I saw. Like it's in all the movies. Oh my God,
I
so
told you it's my
cool.
favorite. It literally sits over here because I sit here.
Wow, this just took it to a whole level. Wow. So let me tell you something. I really enjoy like I'm probably one of the few ones that went to New Orleans from Nepal and then got
Okay.
this culture of like I got to understand all the people from the South, not only from New Orleans because New Orleans is this little island of like a lot of the yeah, there's a lot of like liberal
Yes.
bias there. But then if you go out of New Orleans and you go out in like south, west, east,
Alabama,
or north,
Tennessee. Yeah,
yeah,
it's very different.
it's very different. And then I got to meet with all these folks from over there, and I got to befriend them. And then this was during like all the MAGA stuff was happening around, and
Oh,
none of
yes.
them were bad to me. Here's the kicker. None of them said anything to me. They were just like whenever politics came, they were used to be like, "Yeah, man, this is the stuff we're going through," and all of that. That was such an interesting experience because you hear this like story from the media about people coming into houses with tiki torches, but then that wasn't happening over there. What was happening was these people were frustrated, and somebody took well, I'm not gonna go into the politics of it all, but the people were amazing over there. That's what I really like. Now let me get into a little bit of entrepreneurship sector in
Please.
Nepal. It's really in my mind and how I understand it as of late. It really started in 2008. That's when
Okay.
like the country turned from a monarchy to a republic. So we used to have a king in our country. Now we've turned into a republic. So
Right.
after that, there was a little bit of instability. Like you used to have a government from here and there, and that's when like all these youth, people from 10 years ago or 11 years ago, they started bringing this issue in Facebook. It was called Entrepreneurship, Entrepreneurs for Nepal, and it was just a Facebook group, and they started doing these events every Thursday. And then they started bringing these things into 4A. They even ran for elections to bring these things into mine. But then something magical happened. All the youths that had gone to US or Australia or UK started to come back because they saw there was a lot of opportunity here. That's when they started doing clones of Uber, like Turo, or they started doing e-commerce websites here. They started doing home
Good.
deliveries. They started making IT sector jobs. They started bringing consulting. So that's how we began. And when we initially had all these processes, it was so hard. I hear all these stories from all these veterans from the past 10 years. They talk about these things that are taken for granted right now for me. I get to go to all these events every week. Every week there's an event for entrepreneurship. Back then
Right.
when they started doing that, nobody helped them. So it
Yeah.
was such a huge deal. Now coming in from that sector, and right now I have this opportunity of talking to all the entrepreneurs from Nepal and outside because I've had this opportunity of going out of Nepal, having that experience, bringing in change in myself and the people around me. How do you think I should add value to this system right here? Because you've gone through a lot of things, and I want to ask you that because that's an experience that I can't mimic unless I get a little bit of insight from you.
No, you've had your own experiences, and I respect them immensely. You've done wonderful things in your own life,
Mhm.
and you're trying to build better. So please don't down yourself. Don't denigrate yourself.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just old. I've done a lot. That's all.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, but here's what I'm going to suggest, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
You have a culture that is ripe to grow businesses. You
Mhm.
have people that want to build businesses.
Mhm.
you have, as I understand it, from the information you sent me and from my thoughts, are you have a problem with venture capital in the company, in the country rather, in that it's tough to get at, and it's probably fairly focused. You don't have a Silicon Valley sort of world, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, other than Silicon Valley, neither do we.
Yeah.
Okay, in the U.S., which is a slight bit bigger than Nepal,
Yeah.
we have Silicon Valley and Sand Hill Road, and I have jokes about that all day long because there's a very specific way to work there. But we also have New York, but New York is not Silicon Valley. New York, there's
No,
money,
no.
but only once you have traction. You better have traction. Excuse me. And if you have traction, we've got money for you. But by then you're already making money. So do I want
Yeah.
their money? It's
Exactly.
it's very different worlds, even in this country. So for you to add value to your entrepreneurial ecosystem that you have over there, obviously your podcast is good, but if it's anything like over here, it's frustrating because your podcast people listen to, but do they give you feedback? Do they talk to you about this? That's a problem. Do they ask you, I really want to find out about X, because if you had that, you could go find somebody or talk about it or study up on it, and you could really do something focused. But until you have that feedback, it's tough. So my suggestion to you is two things. I might do three. We'll see. Hang on.
Yeah. We go along in this podcast with whatever we have.
Works. I'll count as I go along.
Yeah.
One is I would recommend keeping the podcast going, but matching it up with a meetup. You're familiar with meetup.com, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Exactly.
have all these meetups. Can you bring a mobile recording studio to the meetups and start doing? I know you have. I'm terribly sorry. Nepalese. What's the Nepal language?
Nepali.
Language.
Nepali.
Nepali. Thank you.
Yeah.
A Nepali podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do that with local people that you meet at these meetings? Have you
Yeah.
brought your?
Exactly. Yeah.
Good. Perfect. Okay. Wonderful. You're already doing it. Great. That's how you get feedback to feed into the whole podcast ecosystem. Second, help build services and teams that can be usable to other countries, not necessarily just the US. In Russia, they have huge numbers of teams of software developers, user interface, user experience, front end, back end, full stack, you name it, that are just there for rent and hire by US entrepreneurs and various other country entrepreneurs because they're half the price.
Exactly.
And Ukrainian developers and Russian developers are fantastic. They're absolutely amazing. They will do exactly what you tell them to. You better have a good spec doc. Okay. So what's the speciality for Nepali Nepali programmers?
Yeah. Exactly. Is that a question or that's
go ahead. Talk to me.
so
What's your specialty there?
in Nepal, I'm a mechanical engineer, so take this with a grain of salt. There's a lot of people that are working in the AI sector. There's a lot of interest in the blockchain development sector too. Most of them do PHP, Python, Java, C++, and some of them they have started working in Flutter as well because it's the next big thing, and Google's
Good.
pushing it really hard. And understand that when Google pushes something hard, people tend to go that way.
It's a detail thing. They kind of are a big company. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have
And
them
there's
in?
a lot of IT institutions over here. Every third person that I meet is either doing IT, computer engineering, or computer science. One of the three. And then each of them is something related to. One of them is related to networking, so they're getting CCNA certificates and
Cisco.
all the all the IBM stuff. The other ones are working in they're a computer engineer. They're working especially in the IT sector, especially focusing on AI and blockchain development. And then if they're working like a traditional developer, they're either a full stack developer or a back end, front end. They use Node.js, JavaScript, something like that. So
Nice.
there's a various sector of people working on it. And like you said, people from the way the people from Russia work, there is certain set of divisions here, but then they do not want to come out in the market. So here's the problem. So if you put your services out there in Nepal, let's say you earn X amount of money, the government is liable to charge you a certain amount of tax, right? but then
Right.
there are not tax breaks that can be incentivized so that these people can actually file for tax returns for their actual income. Are you understanding what I'm saying?
No,
So,
I apologize. I'm not. Can you explain it differently? I'm
so
so sorry.
let's say some company earns $1 million, right? Okay, so usually the service tax is about 25%, and then
All right.
there's another value-added tax we have to pay 13%. And all in
Okay.
all, it comes through a package between 45 to 48% of taxes alone,
Ah,
just on
wow. It's
like
unpleasant.
total. So now the government, and I really like what the government is doing currently. They're trying to push in because now we have a stable government that has 2/3 majority. They're
Oh,
trying to bring
nice.
in new changes, and I do not care which side of the right or left or
No,
center.
just
I
stability
don't
is
care.
nice. Stability is good
Yeah,
for business. Yeah.
2/3 is good. Like
Yeah.
they can make decisions. So what they're doing right now is they're trying to create startup sectors or bubbles where if you open up a company in a certain area,
Right.
you get to have certain benefits, low taxes and all of that.
Tax
And
breaks
then
and things like that.
some
Yeah.
other benefit of this is because the richest person in Nepal who's a billionaire in the Forbes list is trying to bring in 5G to Nepal, like over corners of
Oh,
Nepal. So
that's
what that
awesome.
does is, it takes all the programmers that are centralized in Kathmandu and some other cities and disperses them through all out Nepal. So Nepal, and I know you know Nepal a lot, has a lot of geographical diversity,
Yes.
and
Massive.
it has mountains, it has flatlands, it has hills. So when you go and live into all these scenic locations, who wouldn't want to live over there, right? So all these programmers, they can go get out, but the problem seems to be is that we have lack of infrastructure, like hard infrastructure, like roads, like electricity everywhere, and that takes time. So I'm projecting in about 5 years we'll have some sort of a better infrastructure grid out there so that
Okay.
we can deploy all these programmers. But like you said, that is in some form available in Nepal. So yeah,
So the 5G is interesting. The electricity is interesting. The roads, I mean, if they're sitting in a at a desk with a computer and internet and it's working, they don't
mhm,
care about the road. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
I
As
understand.
long as they can get their whatever delivered, as long as they here it's as long as they can get their pizza delivered, they're
Yeah,
okay,
that's it exactly.
Um, but oh, by the way, and the other thing I know about Nepal is amazing food because I've been
Oh,
to some Nepalese restaurants and oh my God, is it good?
oh yeah, man.
Um,
And
oh my
let
God.
me tell you, the food in US, Nepali food, it's good, but you have to come to Nepal to enjoy the Nepali
Twist
food,
my
man.
arm. Twist my
Yeah,
arm. Okay.
yeah,
Uh, one of these days.
yeah,
But if you can spread that 5G across the entire country, and if you can get the electricity stable across the entire country, or if you can get electricity self-generating via solar, because solar is
yeah,
coming down in price so drastically.
yeah,
There are even countries now that won't allow you to put up a new house until the house can generate its own power.
yeah. Like a zero carbon house or zero emission
Basically,
house.
they'll still go hook it up for wired internet or wired whatever, but
Mhm,
until that house generates enough power to support itself, you can't build it. It's
mhm,
like, wow, that's a great idea.
mhm.
Let's put up solar all over the place or wind because you guys have some wind there, just a little
Yeah.
bit.
Mhm.
And geothermal, all these kinds of things. These are lovely ideas. Let's do that. I'm all for it personally. But when you have that, you get the dispersal and you get the ability. The reason that people go home is because they want to go home.
Mhm.
When I lived in Louisiana, I grew up in New Jersey. When I lived in Louisiana, I said something's wrong, and it took me a while to figure it out. The trees were the wrong color green. I was
Oh
only
yeah.
I was only about 1,500 miles from home, but the deciduous trees at home and the conifer the evergreens in because they're all pine trees
Mhm.
in New Orleans. And I'm
Mhm.
like, these are not the sassafras and maples and everything that I grew up with in New Jersey. It's wrong. It just felt wrong.
Even
And
the
when I came
squirrels
home,
like squeak the wrong way over there.
it's nice to go home.
Mhm.
It's nice to have mom's cooking. It's
Yeah.
nice to go to a restaurant that you went to as a kid and you
Yeah.
hung out with all your friends.
Mhm.
And Kathmandu for somebody that grew up 3 cities away or 5 towns away is fine. It's not bad. But when
Mhm.
they can really go home and raise their children in the same village. And I use the term deliberately, not that they're from a village, but that there's the support network. You know,
Mm-hmm.
every child is raised, you know, it takes a village to raise a child type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. And that's lovely. I mean, we're probably moving in a year or two to be closer to my wife's parents because we like family to be around our child. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Yeah, that
It's
there's a support network, there's ownership, and then you get some sort of faith and love. Like even you get like free babysitters. Even let's just say that.
a little bit. My
Yeah,
mom-in-law has a very busy schedule, but a little
yeah,
bit, yes.
yeah.
And but you know what? She asked me what I wanted for presents, and I said dinners. She goes, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Just have us over once a month for dinner. That's all I
Mm-hmm.
want. Like that will make me so happy."
Mm-hmm.
And it has. She's done it every month, probably twice a month. We go over for dinner,
Mm-hmm.
and we love it, and they love it because they get to play with Lily, my daughter, and you know we get fed dinner, and my wife doesn't have to cook, and she's happy, and,
Mm-hmm.
and it's memories. And so the ability for your programmers, your people, to go home, to have those memories with their family, their loved ones, their cared ones, is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I know I'm harping on this. Forgive me,
No,
but
it's okay.
the work-life balance is something that we're seeing here is so desperately necessary for the mental health and the physical health of your workers. And this goes back to your having a team. I have people in Texas, which, as you know, is a pretty far distance from Delaware, where I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They love living in Texas. It's lower cost of living. They're right by their families. They get to be at home
Mm-hmm.
with their people, with their families, their loved ones. And they've told me like they've turned down jobs with better salaries because of it,
Mm-hmm.
and because they love being able to be home. I've got one young lady who just had a baby 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
She called it. She was on maternity leave, and we were paying her, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And she called us up after a couple months, said, "I love my child." And we're like, "Of course you do." She goes, "Please let me come back to work." Like, okay, okay, okay. She's
I
like,
can
"I'm getting
understand.
cabin fever."
Yeah.
So, but all she did, she's still at home, but she's get back on the calls, back on the computer, back working. She loves it. She loves it, but she's able to be home with her little one.
Mm-hmm.
And that I can't emphasize that work-life balance enough. This is another thing. Silicon Valley is big on co-location. Everybody's got to be in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking to each other right now. I can see
Yeah.
what you're doing. You can see what I'm doing. Why do I need to
Yeah.
be in the same room, man?
Yeah.
What's the
Exactly.
big deal?
Yeah.
We have paid Zoom accounts. I'm on Zoom probably 5 or 6 hours a day.
Wow.
Okay. Half the time it's just open and nobody's talking. We're all working, but there's 5 or 6 of us on the Zoom.
Wow.
Somebody goes,
That's
"Hey,
so
Josh, what about
interesting.
this?" Well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great, thanks. It's the same as if we're in an office. What's the big deal?
Yeah, exactly. The world has just become smaller, but then it has become more productive. And to hit the point home too, there's a lot of people already here that are doing in a form the same way you do work, like call centers. They're already been doing that for decades now. Like India has been prospering just because of the IT sector, a lot because of the IT sector.
Yeah.
I might be downplaying most of this stuff, and then I'll present to you a case what why India is doing so well right now. So in 2016, the richest man in India was Mukesh Ambani, and then he released this Geo network, right? So what he did was he started putting in 4G network all across rural India, like
I
certain
remember reading
areas.
about that. Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and then I was talking to this wonderful entrepreneur from India. He has this service where he's providing farmers from India like really low cost like farming tools that can help increase their productivity,
Sort of
which
like a
wasn't
microloan.
possible. Yeah, which wasn't possible in 2015 because the penetration of internet was only 5%. Now it's at 30%. That means it opens up a whole new set of like customers and consumers that we haven't seen like before, and that was so interesting to me. And I got to talk to him in this platform called Startup School, which I was doing for Y Combinator has this startup school thing online, and I've
Cool.
been doing
Yeah.
this program because just because I talk to entrepreneurs doesn't mean I get to understand everything. I have to learn and learn every day, validating
Always.
learning.
Everyday learning. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was such an interesting story because Nepal is in a similar state where we do not have a lot of internet penetration out in the rural areas. But if we had that, all these people would come back. Not like like come back right away, but that these people have an incentive to come back. And that was such an interesting story. Now let's go a little bit into entrepreneurship sector. So if
Can
you as
I
an American.
can we actually can I kill you for one quick second, or can I
Mhm,
stop you for one quick second?
mhm,
I want to talk to you about something really quickly. You mentioned that rural Nepal has problems with internet, and
mhm,
obviously then education is a problem because if you have
yeah.
little internet, it's difficult to educate. So I'm going to talk to you about something that I am proud to say that I, in a tiny way, helped.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh, let me. Do you mind if I share my screen? Would that be okay?
Yeah, yeah, that it wouldn't be a problem. Just share your screen.
Oh dear. Can I share an application? Oh dear. How about this? Let's not do that.
Hmm.
Um, because you can, my screen is huge, unfortunately.
Oh,
So
okay.
stop sharing. I'm just going to give you a link,
Hmm.
and I'll put it in the chat,
Hmm.
and then you can pull it up yourself. World Possible has something called a Rachel, and I helped with the funding of the Rachel a long time ago. The
Hmm.
Rachel is an offline classroom.
Hmm.
It's a Wi-Fi access point,
Hmm.
a battery,
Hmm.
a hard drive, all in a case. So it's
Oh,
a
I've heard
mixer,
about that.
and you can download the software. You don't have to buy it.
Hmm.
Okay, and the software is free. It includes significant numbers of databases, from Khan Academy for kids
Hmm.
to some of the startup school things that you were talking about.
Hmm.
Um, no internet is required.
Hmm.
So I promise I've been trying to help. um, and what you do is you take a tablet, a phone, or a computer, and you have a Rachel. You turn it on,
Hmm.
and it has all of Wikipedia, Khan Academy. Um, good Lord, where is it? Um,
I
come
can see
on,
it right here.
yeah, it has all of these ridiculous amounts of information on it. Algebra, African storybook, uh, Blockly games, boundless textbooks. Oh, so many books. College credit courses. Oh, it has Ole Nepal on it. It has, for grades 2 to 8, it has 600 interactive learning modules with the support from the government of Nepal.
Yeah,
Content is in English and Nepali.
yeah, yeah. So about this, so there's this place called there's this place called Nepal Innovation Center in the biggest university in Nepal, and I've seen a prototype of these boxes. Okay, I've seen somebody build like a prototype. It was a there's this individual called Mahabir Pun. He's like the biggest innovator in Nepal. He brought internet in his home village. He was a student or like a professor in US as
Right.
well. He came back to
Okay.
Nepal and then he got internet in his remote village. So they didn't have like access to a lot of things, but they had internet and they had like internet in all like surrounding villages. So he did a lot of work. And going back to, can we uh, go back to what we were talking about
Sure. I'm
entrepreneurship?
sorry.
Okay. Since entrepreneurship is such a new topic to Nepali individuals, I see a lot of people here. There's this trend, and I might be guilty of some of that. Is like you get to you get a certain amount of money, let's say X amount of money, and then you are gathering some social media following. You're getting some traction. What happens is, at a certain point, these entrepreneur startups like CEOs, what they do is they get a certain amount of taste of media. And because Nepal is such a small area where if you do something really nice, it explodes.
Right.
The social media highlights it in such a big way. And then they start, instead of growing their customers and reiterating their product, what they do is they started going into different events and talking about their products a lot. I understand, like, as a CEO, any company has this role where they get to talk a lot. But then I don't see a lot of increase in customer growth. And that seems to be a big, really big problem. How do you think, as a modern day CEO or as a modern day founder, how can one balance these two? Because I know you have to do the marketing yourself. And I also understand you have to grow the customers. But then sometimes most of the times here, what I find with founders is that the second part is not really pushed. So customer satisfaction and customer basis is in the back seat. It's more about who you are and promoting yourself.
Well, remember, there's a couple of things. I have some thoughts. I'm not saying this is correct. This is my thoughts.
Yeah, I understand. It's a more of an opinionated piece. This whole podcast form is more about opinions, right?
Okay, cool. So there's a big problem with entrepreneurial world. And the big problem is that when you sleep, you worry about things that you're not doing because you're sleeping,
Yeah,
because you're
exactly.
using the bathroom, because you're at temple, because you're meeting you're having dinner with your parents. Whatever you're doing that isn't building your business or building your brand, and by the way, that can be your personal brand, that can be your company's brand, that can be your product's brand. There's a lot of brands when I say that, okay?
Yeah,
Don't discount that. um, you're worried that you're missing something. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. The fear of missing out, FOMO,
yeah.
is monstrous in
Hmm.
entrepreneurial world. Look, that guy that I talked to 2 weeks ago, he got an introduction to Elon Musk, or she's over at this event that I should be at. Why didn't I know about it? Oh my God. It's crazy, and it's a problem.
Hmm.
So what you have to do is realize there's only so much time in the day. And you have to spend some time on your business. You have to spend some time on your customers. You have to spend some time on your marketing, and you have to spend some time on yourself.
Hmm.
If you don't balance, you're in trouble. Okay.
Exactly.
So these CEOs that you're talking about that are like, oh, look, they like me. They like me, and goes crazy with the social media. They're building their personal brand, but they might not be building the customer base. And if you're not building your customer base, your personal brand will fall apart pretty quickly when they realize that you're what is it, big hat, no cattle. When they realize that you're all talk and that's about it. So it's a real problem. But you got to understand as well that for somebody that's getting courted by everybody on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and whatever, it's really hard to say no. I've got to go make a sales call
Hmm.
rather than, oh, I've got to go, work on, or I've got to go visit this Instagram influencer with 14 gazillion followers that's invited me to the pool party in, the tropics somewhere. Okay. It's a tough call. How do you balance that? Which will that Instagram influencer get you another round of VC funding? Will you meet a VC while you're there? Will that Instagram influencer get you 500 clients? Because, oh my God, that product that this guy builds, she's holding on to or whatever. It's always a balance of which one will do more good. But
Hmm.
it's tough, and that's why you have to build a team. You can't be at every Instagram party, and I'm picking on Instagram. I'm sorry, it's the social media du jour.
Hmm.
Uh, you can't be at every Instagram followers party. You can't be on every sales call. You can't be everywhere, and you can't do everything. And because of that, you have to train people that you trust to do their jobs. And so you have to build a business. And this leads into a topic. An entrepreneur can build a lifestyle consultancy, which is where they're supporting themselves, but they've built themselves a job.
Hmm.
Okay. Or they can build a business. The definition of a business, it is repeatable, reproducible. I can give somebody a job description and say, this is what you do. We may change it over time,
Hmm.
but this is what you do. And you do it every day or every week or every month or every whatever. And I don't have to look over your shoulder other than checking once in a while because I have told you what you need to do.
Hmm.
Building a business is not just going, we're going to build something. Let's go, guys. Building a business has a business plan and a marketing plan and a sales plan. Building a business has an understanding of your product market fit. Building a business has format and process and procedure, and it has a reason and a time that you as CEO, you as COO, you as founder step down. And that's things that people don't understand. Now, if you've gone to enough Instagram followers parties,
Hmm.
well, then as you step down, you can just go to more parties.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
If all you do is go to parties, you're never going to reach the point at
Hmm.
which you step down as a successfully exited entrepreneur.
Hmm. That's something really interesting in Nepal's case, because now, right now, as I mentioned about these founders, and when this podcast goes on air and then it gets released, people misunderstand and they would say, is it me they're talking about? Is it me, or is this conversation targeted towards me? But I'm going to tell you all, if you think you've spent all your time building your product, then it's fine. Just me and him giving our opinions on, especially me on my side, because I'm the one who understands most of these things. If that is what you're doing as a business, that's perfectly fine. I'm just a dude with an opinion. And what do you do with somebody else's opinion? Tell them to stick it, right?
No, no, you can listen to it, you can weigh it, but you don't have to, it doesn't have to be. You don't
Yeah,
have to take
exactly.
it into account.
So I want to move on to something else. This is a really important issue. Nepal is really open to foreign development investment now. That means FDI. So if you bring in money from the outside,
Right?
the minimum cap is about $100,000. You're allowed to have a foreign investment. What that does is that allows a lot of people over here with great ideas to explore more. Let's say Nepal has. So let me give you a little amount of facts about Nepal's population. The
Please.
median age for Nepal right now is 22.
Oh
That
my
means
God, that's young.
that is such a young age. So all the people are in Nepal can enter the workforce. Like most of the people, let's not say
They're in the
all, most
workforce,
of them,
yeah.
they are already in the workforce. An industry right now that's actually booming because of this is the restaurant industry. 5 years ago, when I left from Nepal to go to the US, and now when I came back, every corner right now has this little food shop, and every one
Yeah.
of them is doing business. Every time I go into these food shops, there's people all around. They're eating, they're spending, and you know how much it costs at Starbucks for a latte? It's like
Oh,
150 or something like that, right?
no,
It
it's more
depends
than
on
that. But yeah, whatever. A
the,
couple of bucks.
a couple of bucks. The amount of money I pay here for like similar amount of coffee, it's the same, and people are still buying it.
Wait,
And the
wait, wait,
economy,
wait. What's the average yearly salary there? I mean, what's it cost for a loaf of bread?
a loaf of bread would be about 70 cents.
Okay, so you're at about half the cost than here. But
Yeah.
is the cost of living and the salaries half the cost
Okay,
or
let me
half the
tell
price
you.
here?
So if a program is really paid well, like I mean really well, that's about $1,000 a month.
Jeez, seriously?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. How
That
fast can
you
you
can
build me a
get.
team?
Yeah, yeah, that's what I was getting at. Foreign investment doesn't always mean you have to get money, and you can get contracts in. I know a lot of people that pay $1,000 for best programmers here, and then they take pay like $25 an hour for the same programmer, and then they take in the commission for the rest of the money, and these
Well,
programs are
remember,
still highly paid.
remember that sales is the hardest thing.
Yeah,
So that
exactly.
doing that is tough. But I mean, honestly, if you've got AI, ML, if you've got AI, ML programmers and
Hmm.
you've got blockchain programmers that can do Solidity and things like that,
Hmm.
and you've got front end, back end, full stack programmers, dude, there's work. That's not even a question. I mean,
Yeah.
build me a team.
Yeah, okay, that's completely fine. I know a bunch of people who are already listening to this and just contacting me right now about how we can synergize and everything. But then that at the same time, what's the what's the American perception about outsourcing work and outsourcing investments? So I want to
So
ask you about that.
that's a good question. Outsourcing investment and outsourcing work, very, very different attitudes. Outsourcing investment in terms of sending an investment to a foreign country,
Hmm.
uh, it's a little scary for people
Hmm.
because they don't understand, and rightfully so, they don't understand the laws about investment. The laws
Hmm.
about investment in this country are obscure enough.
Hmm.
Terribly sorry, I'm clogged up today.
It's okay.
You have to be an accredited investor. You have to have $250,000 in your name before you can put an investment on anything. It's crazy. Okay, and people don't get it. It's weird to them. Whatever.
Hmm.
Investment in another country. Oh my God. If I send $100,000 over to Nepal, do I get any of it back? Is it guaranteed? Is there there's confusion and fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the tough part for that. Okay. Now I know people are doing things like, are you familiar with Estonia's e-residency program?
Yeah, I know completely about that. I even tried to register for that at
Okay,
some.
so the thing about the e-residency program is if you get an e-residency from Estonia, if you put 2,500 euros in a European bank, you can now start a company in Europe.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Is there
exactly.
something like, but that means I've got an e-residency from Estonia. I've got, which doesn't forfeit any citizenships, just to be clear. They're lovely people. Um, I've got money in an accredited bank in the EU, and now I can start a company over there. Well, if I
Mhm,
start a company over there, I have control of the company, and I
mhm.
can bring on a team to build product X, Y, or Z. Okay.
Exactly.
And if I say, well, hey, I've got a co-founder, this guy has a great idea in Germany or whatever, in some EU country, and or Estonia, and I start the company and I bring him on as a co-founder, and we are founders together. That's cool. That's an investment, but that's an investment again I have some control over.
Mhm,
People are worried about losing control. Okay,
mhm,
that's the big fear there. That's the outsourcing or out investment.
mhm,
Pushing investment to foreign shores. In my opinion, that's just my opinion. Please take it for what it's worth. Okay.
mhm,
In terms of outsourcing work, in terms of hiring a team of people, there's a feeling that there are cultural differences in various countries.
mhm,
Okay, in and the cultural differences sometimes are very real
mhm.
because it depends on the education. In some
Exactly.
education systems, you went to UNO, okay,
Mhm,
which I took courses at UNO to finish out a bachelor's degree that I had laying around. They needed one course left. It was weird, but anyway, UNO has some great teachers, great instructors. It has some crappy ones, but it has some great ones.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
and American education, US education, tends to teach creativity, tends to teach problem solving, tends to teach, initiative.
mhm,
Okay. Tends to, the best of it. Let's
mhm,
put it that way. Um, some other countries do not teach that same kind of thing. They teach the material, but they
mhm,
don't teach the creativity, the initiative, the problem solving.
mhm,
Okay. They focus on other things. Maybe they focus on team building. Maybe they focus on following instructions exactly. Maybe whatever. But you get a cultural difference in the programming and in the programmers. I'm picking on software development, but you get the idea.
mhm.
Because of that cultural educational difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does completely make sense.
So the best thing that, in my opinion, again, this is just my opinion, that a Nepalese team, is it Nepalese team?
Or Nepali.
Nepali, thank you. A Nepali team could do would be to bring the perception of that culture to U.S. Buyers of their services.
Mhm,
And actually, you can use that kind of perception in your marketing materials and your
mhm,
collateral.
mhm.
Nepali programmers are known for. Let me ask you, what are they known for?
They're known for hard work. They're known for commitment. They're known for completing the jobs on schedule, and they're known for ultimate customer satisfaction.
Do you realize you just gave me like an amazing marketing spiel? That's an
Mhm.
elevator pitch, dude. That's awesome.
That's
Okay.
because I talk to these programmers. It's because of them, not because of me. So
Are
thank
they
you,
are they
people.
creative? Do they solve problems as they show up?
Yeah, they do. They do. That
Okay,
is completely true because I've seen some Nepalese. Okay, let me give you an example. So there
please.
was this Nepalese programmer who was 1 year into robotics at UNO, like just 1 year into, and then we
Nice.
jump started the robotics program. Guess what they did? An all Nepali team won the IEEE robotics competition at UNO.
That's awesome.
So
That's
I don't even
awesome.
have to do anything.
Congrats.
It was one of my closest friends, and they're most of them are already doing PhD at UNO. It's Pujan Pokhrel. He's doing AI research with rogue waves, the waves that hit a
Yeah, yeah,
ship,
yeah.
calculating energy for that. And that was such a
That's
huge concept for me. I'm talking to this one of our regular viewers of our podcast. Her name is Shafalika, and she's this amazing AI programmer. She goes to different parts of Nepal and teaches the young kids what software to use, how to start with AI. Those are the people I associate with here, and they are so good. And the problem
we're
seems.
an NVIDIA partner. If she wants any hardware, some of that Tensor on AI on the edge hardware, I'll happily get her some.
Oh, okay, awesome. I'll text her right away.
Please. Yeah, we're able to get some hardware, especially. I mean, that's a good thing. So
Mhm,
if she wants some, she'll understand it's Xavier boards and things like that that
mhm,
we can get her. I don't know how many. I'll find out, but we
mhm,
can potentially get her some Xavier boards that
mhm,
are basically little mini AI machines,
mhm,
AIML machines, and they're
mhm,
designed to doing AI on the edge, basically like sort of the sensor data gathering,
mhm,
or with the model in place to actually perform the model functions. They can't generate the model. They're too small to generate a model from the data. But once you have the model, they can actually perform whatever you're doing with the model.
Yeah,
So like,
I think they can use like TensorFlow Hub for getting the models, and then they can run through that. I know a little bit of it, so I can go
these
like
have
super
these have
on it.
like 500 CUDA cores on them, so
Mhm,
graphic processing unit cores on them.
mhm,
Really, really nice boxes. We're an NVIDIA partner, so it's really nice. They're lovely stuff, and they're nice people. They want to spread this out there for people to use. So
mhm.
I'm happy to put her in touch with NVIDIA. Use our connections to get anything she needs. Not a problem. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
awesome.
try. I can't guarantee, but I'll try.
Yeah, she'll be so happy to listening to this in that podcast and her name mentioned. Shout out to her. Just don't, take it to heart if it doesn't work out. It's just
We'll
like no
try. Look,
guarantees
all
in
we can
life,
do is
right?
try.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was saying. See, these are the things that I get to talk about because I've had this experience. Even reaching out to you on Reddit as I did, it's because of the confidence that was instilled on me by my teachers, my mom, everyone around me. And when you talk about education and when you talk about having opportunities, I've only recently realized I used to think I was really poor, comparing myself to all these people from UNO and all these people from US, because you go over there and you see them talk about all these things, have this creative freedom in life in general, and you think, oh, I was so repressed. And I come back here and I talk to half the people, they haven't had the same opportunity that I have been provided. I'll give you an example. I go to this gym. 90% of the people that go to the gym are going to the gym for like months and months, and just because they want to go for the training regimen for the Gurkhas. So when you said the
Okay.
Gurkhas, I train with these guys who are trying to get into the British Army, and most of them fail. There's this beast
Yeah.
who can do like 10 pull-ups, rest for 30 seconds, do 10 pull-ups for 5 sets straight, and then he
Oh,
doesn't get tired, and he wasn't selected, and he
wow.
wasn't selected. That was
Well,
such
there's
a
a lot of reasons that they do or don't select it. I mean, it's there's mental, there's physical, there's a lot of reasons that they will or will not. I
Mhm.
mean, remember that they're pretty much like they're amazing.
Yeah.
So they've got to pick the best of the best, and I respect
Okay.
that, you know?
And to now we're gearing towards to the end of the podcast, because it's like really high time that my mom is trying to call me to come and eat, but I still told her I have
It's dinner time, man.
yeah,
Go eat
it's
dinner.
dinner
Go eat
time.
dinner.
Yeah, but before that, I wanted to say something. We're also celebrating Visit Nepal 2020. So in this year, the aim of the Nepali government is, and the Nepali people in general, is to bring 2 million, at least 2 million people to Nepal as visitors and as tourists, because we want to extend Nepal's reach to, South Asia, Asia, USA, and beyond, wherever
Awesome.
possible. And then there might be some like logo about Visit Nepal 2020 floating around here somewhere between the podcast
Somewhere.
at some time. So I'm just letting you know. And as of this podcast, I have certain recommendations that I got from you. I'm gonna list them down and tell me if I missed some of them. So first thing you want is that you want, if we want in American investors, we need to clearly have a bulletin list of what are the things an investor is allowed to do, what are the rights and issues, and how these investments will come back to these investors, right?
Right. And how they're
Right.
protected.
Yeah.
What laws protect the investor and the investment?
Okay. Second thing, you want to understand how Nepali founders, co-founders, Nepali programmers, or any person in the startup sector in general, how their work ethic is, how their work culture is, and does it gel with the work culture over there, right? Correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said.
And third, and the most important thing is, how are these people going to change their way of thinking to be more creative? That's the most important thing, because we are, as you said, you mentioned some of the countries that only teach the material, and I can, as a student or until 12th grade, I can tell you we learn a lot about the material, but the creative side is a little bit behind. But then after the bachelor's degree, that's when the creative side like goes on. One of the greatest things that Nepal's geography has provided us is to think in our toes. Just start thinking about different things and different solutions that can help us grow. So these are the three things that we discussed in the podcast. Did I
I'm
miss
gonna
anything?
I'm gonna expand on one, which is the last one, which is the creativity aspect. And that's, figure out what after school programs, what games, whatever you can have for those kids that will help them expand their creative outlets. Maybe something off of the Rachael Offline, maybe something from Hack for Kids, which is a group I do a lot of conferences. I run B-Sides Delaware with a small team, and we have a spawn camp where we have all the kids come in and we teach them how to build electric circuits with snap circuits, which is a great toy. And we teach them all these creative things and they have a great time. So maybe an after school program that you can help build or whatever. And the one, two more things actually. One, how do I get in contact with somebody in Nepal to start these processes? That's something that it would be good to have elucidated on, explicated, explained. And the last thing is for you personally. I envy you. You are at the beginning of the entire world of entrepreneurialism in your country. You're not there when there's 40 people that around the corner that have done it. You're there when you can meet just about everybody in your country that's doing it yourself. You're at the forefront. You have an incredibly wonderful and unique place in history. Don't let it pass you by.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to say thank you so much for all this time, and then we'll work more. We are in connection through email, through Reddit, and through other social media platforms. Even like Skype, we can do Skype if that is something that is in his agenda someday, because I know he's a busy man. And then we can help other Nepali entrepreneurs who can use the resources you have, make contact, and then, like you said. And there's a lot of work to be done in the outsourcing world, especially in the IT industry. And then I hope if we can build a really solid team here, we can get you that team, and then they can help you solve many problems that come in your workplace every day. Right?
Sounds like a plan. I'd love it. That's lovely.
All right. Thank you so much. This was a wonderful podcast. We even got to see a gun in this podcast, which is a really interesting thing for me. And that has made me really happy because I haven't seen a gun in front of me in about 8 or 9 months. So because I used to live in New Orleans, I got to rep that.
Yeah, you get to see them there. Trust me. It's ridiculous. But you come back to the U.S., I'll take you shooting. Not a problem.
Oh, all right? Awesome. I'll take you up for that. And then if you ever come to Nepal, remember, you've always got a friend here. You've got a lot many friends now that you said you're going to provide all these things. They're going to be hitting you up and then searching your name. I'll put down his company's address over there, even his LinkedIn address, and the address, like online address for his hackathons and different online tutorials he provides. And then I'll provide resources for everything else we talked about here. We won't provide the sources for the guns because those are illegal in Nepal. But
no, that's an antique. That's an antique weapon. That's from long before I was born. Yeah. That's actually a vintage. So it's not something that has a source. I just bought it. I happen to know a guy I bought it. So anyway,
thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Welcome. Thank you. You take care. Go get some dinner.
Yeah.
Supper. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.